Hi, everybody. My name is Sir Hassan DOSSANI, and I am an expert tutor of ACCA subject SBL. Since last 3 years, I have taught over 3,000 SBL students globally, and in each and every attempt, I have at least one or two national prize winners. So there are two SBL students who scored 92 marks in SBL, one in March 2023 attempt and the other one in June 2023 attempt. Yes, you heard me right, 92 marks in SBL. So both these students primarily used my video lectures and my exam techniques. So I thought that I will interview both these students to understand their study plan, their approach, and what they did in the paper so that they were able to score unbelievable 92 marks, right? So allow me to introduce these students to you. All right, so meet two SBL students who scored 92 marks. So the first one is Rahul Bikram from South Africa. He scored 92 marks in SBL March 2023 attempt. He was the global prize winner for SBL for March, which means that he scored the highest marks in the entire world. And the other student is Shi Kai from Malaysia, and he also scored 92 marks in June 2023 attempt, and he was the second highest global scorer for SBL in June attempt. So I have taken their live interviews to understand their strategies. So you will now see the interview with Rahul followed by interview of Shikhai. And after their interview is finished, in the end, what I have done is I have summarized the main takeaways, the main things which they focused. So that summary in the end will give you a complete idea of their approach, their techniques, so that you are able to benefit from it. And all of the students who are out there who are preparing for SBL, you can focus on that summary from the start, right? So let's quickly move to the interview with Rahul and then with Shikhai. And don't forget to see the main takeaways and summary towards the end of this video. Mr. Rahul Bikram. And Rahul is basically the global prize winner for SBL in the previous attempt. And he scored 92 marks. All right. So I have requested him to share his approach and his experience, how managed to score 92. Even I think if I give SBL paper, I'm pretty sure I will not be able to score 92. So he's a good looking dude, huh? All right, so we have got with us Rahul. And as I mentioned, he's the global prize winner for SBL in the previous attempt. He scored unbelievingly high marks, 92 marks out of 100. So Rahul, a big congratulations to you. It is not a small achievement.
Yes, thank you.
Right. So Rahul, let me ask you some basic questions. Rahul, are you a working person or a full-time student?
So I am working full-time, and it does make it challenging to focus on studies and work, but I have managed to find a balance to do it.
All right. So what is your nature of work?
So I am working in the finance department in an FMCG company. So I am a finance systems and process analyst. So I work in the finance department and I look at our internal processes and I try to improve them using digitization and automation.
Wow, interesting. Was this your first attempt to SBL?
Yes, it was my first attempt.
Excellent. And did you just give SBL or did you give some other paper along with SBL in March?
This was the only exam I took in March.
Okay, so you just gave one paper in March, SBL.
Yes.
Right. So can you share with us your study approach, especially in the last month, like 1 month before the exam? What was your study approach? How much theoretical, how much practice? Just, what was your strategy for preparing for the exam?
So in terms of preparation, it's important. I thought that it was important to do all of the content first, and then I can start practicing as soon as possible. So in the last month of the exam, I wanted to already be done with all of the content. So I have 1 month just for preparing for the exam. Then in terms of time, I think it was very important to be consistent, especially when you're working full time. You have to try and put in at least 2 or 3 hours every day on the weekdays. And then on weekends, you have to put in a few more hours. And it's quite important to build a discipline to be able to do that.
I see. So you were spending at least 2 to 3 hours every day on weekdays and on weekends, like close to 5 to 6 hours.
Yes, correct.
And how much focus were you doing on theoretical side versus practice side? Were you practicing more or were you just going through the chapters more?
So I spent a lot more time on practice, especially with SBL. I think for most of the ACCA exams, SBL is the most practical exam. It's not very technical compared to other exams like tax. So I wanted to do all of the content, and I did that in about 20 or 30% of my total study time. And from then, I spent a majority of my time on practicing questions, because then I could actually apply what I had learned in the questions.
Very interesting. As you said that SBL is more of a practical exam rather than a technical exam. So you used to spend
Yes.
70, 80% of the time in practicing.
Yes, I know a lot of students might think if you cover the whole syllabus, then you're ready to pass the exam. But especially with SBL, that's not the case, because you haven't applied your knowledge yet.
I
And you need a
completely
question for
agree.
that.
I completely agree because SBL is not like any other ACCA paper. So
Yes.
it's a practical exam. So you should spend like 70% on practicing. I mean, you should spend more time in practice rather than more time in content or syllabus. And that's what you did, right?
Yes, but it's important not to neglect the content as well. You do need
Oh,
to have the full
absolutely.
understanding. And you need to get
Absolutely.
that understanding as soon as you can, so you have time to practice.
Absolutely. So when you said practice, you were doing practice how? Like on the CDE platform or Microsoft Word, or What do you mean by, how were you doing your practice?
So I found it easier to actually use to download papers on PDF and then practice them on my own word processor on Excel. But I did use the CB platform a lot, especially towards approaching the exam time.
Yeah, so I'm
And
more focused on the last few weeks because we are just 4 weeks away from the exam.
yes. So what I found is that SPL, it's a 4-hour exam. And if you have to sit down and do 4 hours of work, it's a lot of energy, especially when you come home from work. You can't sit and do a 4-hour exam. So what I did is I said, maybe for 2 days, I'll break down one exam. So I'll do half of the question on one day and half on the next day. So because I could break down my time in chunks, it allowed me to actually do the work. Because if I said, let me try and do 4 hours, I'm just going to put it off and possibly not do anything.
So good strategy. So you used to break down the case study between 2 days. So you spend like 2-3 hours on the first day and then 2-3 hours on the next day to finish the entire scenario, right?
Yes, correct.
So guys, did you understand his study approach that, he first understood the content and then he spent more time on practice, and he used to give at least 2-3 hours each day and more hours on the weekend. And he used to break the scenario between 2 days because for him, it was not possible to sit straight 4 hours after office. Did I summarize correctly for you, Rahul?
Yes, that's correct. And on weekends, it would be possible to sit for that 4 hours because you would
Right.
have more energy during the
Correct.
weekend.
All right. So now so how many scenarios you practiced? How many past papers? Did you do all of them or just very few of them?
I did do a couple of them, maybe about 10 or so, but there's a lot on the practice platform that I didn't do. So there are definitely enough resources available for us to do and practice as much as we can. I'd say minimum 5 we need to do, but try and do as much as you can.
Yeah. So you did at least 5-7 case scenarios in your practice?
Yes.
Okay.
And with some of them, when I found that I was just a bit too tired to actually do the question properly, what I did is I at least sat and tried to write down my answer plan that I would answer, at least in bullet points. And from there, I could look at the answer and read the examiner report. So at least I could do something rather than putting off the entire exam preparation.
Got it. Did you use any book like BPP or Kaplan, or you just watched the webinars and the internet resources?
So I didn't use any books, and especially
What?
at
Can you
this
repeat
level,
that?
I didn't use any books.
You didn't use any books? Oh my God. A lot of
So
students might faint when they listen to you.
especially at this level, the exam kits are basically past exam questions. So that's already available on the practice platform. There's a lot of resources that are available. And on YouTube, like your webinars are quite useful as we watch you going through answers. And your grand revision with the top 25 topics, it covers a whole lot of content. That's
Oh,
also useful.
you use my grand revision top 25 topics video?
Yes, so I actually did that at the very start of my study. So the first thing I did is I watched your orientation video, and the next thing I jumped straight into that top 25, even though I had no idea what the content was about. But that 5 hours gave me a good understanding of what SPR is about and where I should be focusing as I am studying through the content.
Excellent. So you did not use books, you used the resources available online. You looked at the webinars, you looked at my top 25 grand revision video, some other sources, and then you spent most of the time practicing. Right. So I'm
Yes.
very clear. I'm very clear now on your preparation stage. So let's now move towards your actual exam. So during that 4 hours, how did you manage your time?
So I think I was able to manage my time very well. And it's also a discipline that was a big part of my preparation. I set a specific time for each question and I made sure that I moved on when that time was up. So in terms of planning for time, I said the exam is 240 minutes. So I spent the first 40 minutes planning and reading as much as I can. So it gives me an even 200 minutes left. That's 2 minutes per mark. And I use my spreadsheet and said task 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I'm starting my exam at 9 a.m., at 9:40, I'm starting question 1. Then if question 1 is 20 minutes, then, sorry, if it's 20 marks, that's 40 minutes for me. So at 10:10, I'm moving on. Sorry, at 10:20, I'm moving on to question 2. So I have my end time planned. So I just write as much as I can, as many points within my allocated time, and then I move on to the next question. And I found that to
Oh,
be quite useful.
very, very interesting. So you allocated time for each question. All right. So I hope you find this discussion which really useful. Some points were really an eye-opener, and I hope that it must have cleared some doubts, some misconceptions in your mind. And if you are thinking of another strategy, now is the time to correct your strategy. Shikhai was not my paid student, okay, but he actually used all my online material, my webinars, my Google Drive, my suggested answers, my strategies. So guys, just forget what, just unlearn what you have done in the past, and we have around 5 to 6 weeks, and that's sufficient time that we can, focus. And if we cannot get 92, I am pretty sure we can get 75 at least if we are following his strategy. We have a real life example. We have with us a gentleman from Malaysia. His name is Shikhai. And Shikhai scored 92 marks in June attempt. Yes, you heard me right. 92 marks in SBL in the same attempt in which you guys had given the exam. He also faced the same requirements task number 1 was culture and all those things, but unbelievingly, he scored 92. So I thought that it will be very helpful to all of you if we can understand directly from Shikhai what was his approach, and maybe we can learn a few tricks from him so that we can also score high. Right, Shikhai, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We understand it's quite late out there in Malaysia.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for it. Thanks for understanding and considerations. Yeah.
All right. So first of all, big congratulations on scoring unbelievingly high score, 92 in SBL. And we have around more than 75 students with us connected all around the world. And I would like to understand your approach, what you did, what you avoided, so that we can all benefit from it. So first of all, I would like to talk about the actual exam paper, the actual exam day when you were sitting, when you were giving the exam on the CBE platform. So what was your strategy? What points do you think helped you score 92 during the paper?
To answer that question, I think it starts from how do we plan our answer? How do we structure? How do we come with a structure? So the whole preparation of the exam, when I went into the CBA platform, I think I follow your strategy that much. I'm pretty sure. I spent around 45 to 1 hours in reading the exhibits to scan through it. And also the first thing is to always understand what the question is asking for. I look through the questions and I briefly have something in mind. So what they ask me for, like culture, race, and technology. So I know what the question are prompting, and I go and find the answer from the exhibit with knowing the questions. So when I look through the exhibits, I wouldn't go like too deep or so in depth. I just scan through it. And whenever I find any point that relevant to any questions, I put a pointer over my draft. Yeah, my draft is the
Hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yes,
So just let me repeat some important points so that others might struggle with your accent. So Shikhai said that he spent like the first 45 minutes in planning. He read all the requirements. So he knew what were the topics like culture, like risk management. And then he read all the exhibits. And he specifically mentioned that he did not read the exhibits in great detail. He just went through them looking for any key information or keyword. And if he found something related to the requirement or the topic, he copy pasted that sentence on his answer tool. Am I correct, Shikhai?
Yeah, crystal clear.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So after I copy paste, then I will start to look what is the question that I am confident with. What is the question that I find challenging? Like the first question, the culture web is quite hard for me as I'm not really preparing for that. So I tend to avoid to work on the challenging first. I try to work on the question that I'm confident with and start expanding off the point from there. Yeah, so this is what I do.
Right. Can I just quickly summarize what you said? So then
Yeah, sure.
after, reading the exhibit and copy pasting some information from the exhibit onto the Word document, then he analyzed which questions were easy and which questions he found difficult. So for example, question number 1 was about cultural web, which Shikhai found really difficult. So he did not do that question. He actually started answering those questions where he was more confident, where he knew that he had sufficient points. So I think he managed, the time trap thing pretty well. He avoided those questions which might take extra time. He started with questions which were relatively easier so that he can score some good marks up front.
Yep.
Right. So then you started with the good questions, and then what happened?
All right. So before I start the question, I need to add on. I will time myself to see allocate around 1.8 minutes per point to ensure that I won't run out of time. I won't focus on one question too much. So I will limit myself for per questions, and I expand all of the points. And after I finish all of the points, I try to find out to come up with one or two extra points that are not from the exhibits. Try to showcase that I have the professional skill, I have the business acumen. Try to grab more points to compensate the first question of culture web, because I know I'm not going to score very well in the first question. So I try to get points from other questions. Yeah.
Right. So good strategy that you tried to write one extra point in each question, but remaining within the allowed time, right?
Yeah. I think the
All
key point
right.
will
So
be
you also,
time
that
management.
means you observe time management very strictly.
Yeah, agree. I think time management is the key of SBL, because 4 hours, if we fall into a time trap, we couldn't finish all of the question, and it's a bit waste for us.
Absolutely correct. So he's saying that, it's a 4-hour paper, and if we start with time trap questions, you will never be able to finish the paper. So he took the other way around. He started with the easier questions. He tried to give one extra point in each question so that, that can compensate somewhat to the difficult questions. So that means that were you able to complete the paper? Like when you completed your easier questions, then you came back to the time trap questions and you started attempting it?
I think it is because of my typing speed. After I complete all of the question, I have around 10 to 20 minutes. So that's the time I go through all of the question and see where can I chip in, like add on some additional point to see where can I maximize my marks. Yeah, so I think due to good time management and strategy, I afford to finish the papers, and I can have sufficient time to do like double checking to ensure the format is correct, to add on more marks and points. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So because you focused on time management from the start, so towards the end, you were comfortable, you had few minutes to go back and try to add more points and, make your answer script a little bit better. Interesting.
Yep.
So I have one question. So on your answer script, you skipped question number 1, right? Because it was a difficult question. But on your answer script, was all the questions sequentially, or were the sequence as per your attempt?
The sequence is according to the task. I didn't change the sequence. Yeah, I just leave it blank and wrote the field question. Yeah.
So you didn't change the sequence, you just attempted all the answers. The script was in sequence, but your attempt was more towards easier one first, but you didn't change the sequence on the answer script.
Right, correct.
All right. So tell me about your drafting. So do you write lengthy points or concise points?
I write concise points, like 1 to 2 words, and yeah, basically I will label it. Where's the exhibit? I find it. So when I work on it, I can refer back to the exhibits and I copy the key point, copy the key sentence, and make some amendments on it. So it will become like you apply the knowledge to the case and you save your time. Yeah.
So can I say your 1 point or 1 paragraph was like 3 to 4 lines of CBE platform?
Yeah, around there, 3 to 4. Yeah.
So you were not going into lengthy explanations and lengthy detailed points. You were just linking with the exhibit and sticking to the basic point.
Yeah, I don't like to write lengthy thing. I feel like the thing is efficient and effective. As long as the language you can communicate well of your points to the markers, it shall be a valid point. Yeah.
Okay. And were you giving subheadings for each point, or you were just writing straight paragraphs?
I write subheadings. I think subheadings, it will help the markers to better understand what are we trying to say, and it helps us to understand what are we writing. So we won't write something that's not relevant, that not value adding to our answers. Yeah. So it helps us to ensure that we are writing the right thing, we are communicate effectively to the markers. Yeah.
So you were giving subheadings for each point.
Yeah, each
So
point.
that marker can understand where you are coming from.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of one or two subheadings? Like, are they lengthy? Are they short? Can you just give me one or two examples of your subheadings?
Sure. All right. So I couldn't remember the context, but my
Just
approach
give an
is,
example.
all right, marketing strategy, right? We say the advantage, global marketing, expand global markets, 3 words. And then we work on the advantage. Why e-marketing can help us to expand global markets because of like lack of physical stores. We can have internet.
So your heading was global, expand global market.
Yep.
And then you explain that point. So very short heading just to summarize the point.
Yep.
Excellent. Very good strategy that you were giving subheadings to each paragraph, to each point, so that the marker can know and you can also assess whether you are on track or getting off track. Right. And did you focus on professional skills marks? How did you manage on that?
I did focus, but not like putting a lot of efforts, because I think it's more on like habits. So it
That's
will
your habit.
like very natural. When you see skepticisms, you will question the statements, right? And as long as your language is structured and you use the professional tones and manners, then I wouldn't think that I think you can get good marks in professional marks. Yeah. The thing is, we need to train it. Yeah. Make it a habit.
So if you know what the professional skills are, and if you use professional language, you show some professional standard in drafting, automatically you will score marks.
Yep. Speak like a CFO. Yeah.
Think like a CFO. Oh, very nice. Okay, so I guess, were you stressed out before the paper, or how did you relax? Or were you like normal before the paper? Do you remember?
It's quite stressed because I was working on the mock. So I relaxed by getting coffee. Yeah. But I think it's more on like, you need to track your progress. As long as you understand that you are on your track, you know that you are learning, you are improving, then you'll be fine. Yeah.
All right. So I think that's a very good insight you gave on how you did the actual paper. Let me summarize that. He read the case study in the first 45 minutes. He copy pasted some important information to all the requirements. He knew all the requirements. What are the requirements? So wherever he found something relevant to the requirements, he copy pasted that information on the sheet. And then he elaborated on those points, thinking about the impact on the business. And he started with easier questions first, and then towards the end, he came to the difficult questions. From a presentation point of view, he was giving subheadings to each and every point, and he was using professional standard language in order to score professional skills. Excellent. So I think his main focus was time management, and he did not overrun the time in any question. So comfortably towards the end, he was left with few minutes so that he was able to write some extra points in order to score extra marks. Right. All right. So now I want to talk a little bit about your preparations phase, specifically last 2 or 3 weeks before the exam. So in the last 3 weeks, or let's say 4 weeks, were you focusing more on the book or on important topics, or on practice? What was your focus and mix?
I would say like 80% will be mock papers. Yeah, I work on past
Can
year
you
questions.
repeat? Can you repeat that?
80% of my time is past year question. Yeah.
80% of your time, especially in the last 3 to 4 weeks, were on practicing and mocks, drafting
Yeah,
and
yeah,
mocks. Were you
yeah.
using the CBE platform?
Yeah, I always use the CBA platform.
Always use CBE. So what about the theoretical side? Were you focusing on the entire syllabus, or you narrowed it down to some key important topics?
All right. So at first, I tried to cover all of the syllabus and I tried to read all of the materials and theory, but I find it's not useful if we don't apply it to the case. So I try to work on a few mock, and I find it like, okay, so what is the most frequent one? And I go to study like to watch a video about like top 25, top 50, the topics, the videos, and then to learn from there. And then since I start working on mock paper, I find it right, the theory is not that important. The important is the problem solving of the skills of the case. How are you going to apply, be flexible, don't limit yourself to theory. Yeah, this is what I learned from my exam. Yeah.
Excellent. So what I just repeat what you said, that initially you started with all the entire syllabus, the books and everything, but later on you realized that the theory is not that important. It is the application and problem solving skills which is tested in SBL. So then you change your strategy. You started focusing on the more important, more frequent topics, and you shifted your efforts towards more practice and application rather than wasting more time in theoretical aspects. You focus more on application.
Yes.
Excellent. And did you do any time-based mocks?
I work on 10 marks. The first 2 to 3 marks I didn't time myself, but the rest of it, like 7 marks, I time for 4 hours, like what the actual exam looks like. Yeah.
Oh, you actually sat for 4 hours and did quite a few number of case studies sitting straight 4 hours?
Yes, 4 hours. I want to ensure that I understand the case.
Wow.
Try to train my stamina. Yeah.
Wow. How many questions you practiced? Approximately.
Around
10
10
case
mocks.
studies?
Yeah.
10 mocks?
Case studies.
Wow. And did you use the kit, the revision kit? Or you
Not
just
really.
use the
I
past papers?
Past paper, HCCA resources. Yeah.
Just you did not use any book, any kit?
Yeah, no. I think it's not relevant for this
irrelevant.
exam.
And yet you scored 92.
Yeah, because application is the key.
Application is the key. So I really don't understand why students want to read books and kits. I hope they will learn from your experience.
Yeah, this is why I think it's more on how we effectively solve the skill and try to be flexible to understand what is the key issues. Yeah, I think if we rely many on the books and kits, it will limit our approach. We will be limited, we will stuck by the theory, by the model framework, and we can't really solve the problems and the issue in the case. Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me, the models. So did you use a lot of models in your answer, or you were just not using models and going logical?
I want to admit that the first question I used a culture web, but the rest of the question I just use a simple answer and structure like pros and cons, advantages, disadvantages.
Pros and cons, yeah.
Yeah.
So you did not really rely on models. I mean, so, people might think that you have used models in your answers. That's why you scored 92. I don't think that's the case, right? You just went logical with pros and cons. So, you did not use a lot of models.
Yeah. In addition, if you want to add more marks, we couldn't be limited by the framework. Let's say pastel, we have 6. If you want to add to 7, 8, 9 points, we couldn't be limited by pastel, right? So the best thing is to disregard all of the models and framework. Just put whatever you can.
Disregard all the frameworks.
Yeah. understand what you want to say. That is important.
Right. All right. So let me summarize that. You initially started with focusing on books and all the knowledge, but later on you understood that it is not the theory which is important, it is the application which is important. So you shifted your strategy. 80% of the time you spent on practicing and drafting. You did 10 case studies, and out of that, majority were under time-based 4-hour sitting, right? And you just focused on important models. You did not use any book. You did not use any revision kit.
Yeah. For SBL,
Right.
never.
And 80% was practice, 20% was theoretical knowledge. One last question. Did you read examiners' answers? How did you analyze whether your answers, the practice you were doing was correct or not?
To answer the first question, I do read examiner answers for few marks, 1 to 2 marks. The reason why I do this is to understand what is the language the examiner use, the marker use, what's the professionalism in it, how do they structure their answers. But don't do it so often because it's quite lengthy and it will consume a lot of energy. Right? So my advice is read 1 to 2, understand the language, understand the structure. And to answer the question on how I mark my marks, it all on your resources on your Google Drive. Yeah. So I get all of this. Yeah. So yeah, your answer provider is a pointer. So for us, it's easy to adapt to diverse. To absorb, and for us to more easy to marks. Yeah. So I think your question is more easy for the student to understand what is the points compared to the examiner report. Yeah.
Very interesting. So let me recap that he initially read 1 or 2 examiners' answers, but the objective was just to understand his style, the examiner's style, how they write, what kind of language they use, how they handle professional skills. That was just from a learning or an understanding point of view. But the rest of the case studies, like 7 or 8 case studies, he did not look at the examiner's answers because they are too lengthy. And he actually, to my surprise, looked at my suggested answers, which are available on the Google Drive, because he found them more concise, more relevant, more to the point. Very interesting. I didn't knew that. All right. So I guess that's about it from my side. Is there any high-level message, a concluding remark or message which you would want to give to the fellow students?
I would say be flexible in solving the question, be effective in communicating your answer. Yeah, flexible and effective.
Excellent, excellent. Anyone has any questions for Shikai? I can take 1 or 2 questions. If you have a question, can you please type? Or does anyone want to speak?
Yes.
Yes, Tambisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to find out, like, how long was he studying? Like, how many hours did he give each day? Like 2 months before, right now that we're writing exams in September, like how much time do we need to give the SPL? Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
All right. To answer your questions, I started 1 month earlier before the exam, and I sit for 2 exams, FM and SBL, and I spend 6 hours per day for each subject. No, 6 hours per day for 2 subjects. So in this case, if you have 2 months time, you can spend around 3 to 4 hours per day for 1 subject. That will be more than enough. The thing is, how do you practice it? How do you make it effective? Yeah.
Very nice. So he's saying 3 to 4 hours per day, 1 month before the exam.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Ruana, unmute.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, since you gave all the mock papers from the CV platform, did you give it to a professor who was an SBL professor to, check your papers? Because after writing the papers, you're not sure if the written paper is right or wrong. So I just wanted to know about that.
All right. The first thing is SBL have no wrong answers, right? As long as you can explain or justify your points. This is the first thing. The second thing is I didn't pass to any professor, but I sent it to my friend to see whether I write it in a proper tone and whether they can understand my language. Yeah, so SBL is more like how do you explain your points? How do you find evidence to support your points? How do you communicate? Yeah, there's no exact right or wrong answers in SBL. Yeah.
Excellent. Very well explained, Shikhai. One last question, Shreya.
I just want to ask, did you give two papers together? Because you just mentioned that you gave two papers. And
Yep,
did you clear both?
Yeah, I take AFM and SBL together and I pass both paper. I passed AFM at 89, SBL at 92. Yeah.
So he gave AFM and SBL together, SBL 92 and AFM 89. So Shikhai, you are not a normal human being, you are a Superman.
I mean, practice make perfect. Yeah.
All right, excellent. All right, Shikhai, on behalf of everybody here, I would really like to thank you once again. And again, a big congratulations. Really appreciate that you took out the time to talk to these students, although it's like almost midnight in Malaysia. So thank you once again. It was a real pleasure talking to you, and we really wish you all the best in your future. Thank you very much,
Thank
Shikhai.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks
Bye-bye.
for your time. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Right, guys. I hope you enjoyed the discussion, the candid discussion with both these students. And I have kind of summarized the main takeaways from both the interviews. So during the paper, what was their technique and approach during the paper? So the main thing was attempt easy questions first and do difficult or time trap questions in the last, right? That's very important. This is something which I picked up from them, that they never start with the difficult questions. Otherwise, your time management will get out of control, right? So they start with the easier question first. However, on the answer script, they don't disturb the sequence, right? Their answer script is in the right sequence, but their attempt is, starting from the easier question first and then going back to the difficult questions. The second important thing is rigorous focus on time management. They were really fierce with time management, right? How they manage their time, they used to write the target ending time before they start the question. So when you are starting a question, you calculate the allowed time as per the marks, and they used to write the ending time. For example, if you're starting a question at 9 o'clock and the allowed time is 30 minutes, so they used to write ending time 9:30. And what they do is, as soon as the allowed time was up, they moved to the next question, even though if that question was incomplete. So as per them, leave question and move to the next question if target ending time is up. In the end, if you have time, come back and finish the incomplete answer. That was their strategy, right? And then try to think of a real life example, if any, from the same industry, Very interesting point. So for example, in one of the case studies, there was a question on a fitness gym. So if you have if you have been going to a fitness gym at some point in your life, you do have some idea about a gym, right? So try to, think of a real gym if you have interacted with a gym, something like that. Use information from the scenario to start your point. This is what I call opening sentence. So they always, use some information from the exhibit to start their point and build their argument. Then give one extra point for each question, but remaining within the allowed time. So they try to, give, if the question requires 8 points as per the marks, they tried and give 9 points, but not at the expense of overrunning the time. So time management is very, very crucial here. And this one is very interesting. Maximum 3 to 4 sentences per point. No lengthy elaborations needed. So their points were pretty short and to the point. 3 sentences, 4 sentences, you can say 3 lines or 4 lines on your word processor, right? And give short subheadings for each point. So for each point, they used to give a very short logical subheading. For example, when they talk about, let's say, advantages of globalization or online or e-commerce, it says, more customers or more revenue or global customers, right? So the heading will be global revenue or global customer, and then they will elaborate the point. If there are cost savings associated with online business, there are cheaper costs, less overheads, their heading would be less costs or low overheads. Something very basic, but they always used to give some subheading for each and every point. No or very less use of models. Both of them actually avoided models. So, in one of the exam, there was a question on culture, and it's a very complicated model, cultural web. So they partially use the model, but by and large throughout the paper, they avoided using models. They just took a logical approach, picking information from the exhibit and explaining its impact in their own words. Both of them said technical knowledge is not important. Application of knowledge is the main focus. So, unfortunately, the majority of the students, they spend so much time in books and chapters and models, but the theoretical knowledge is not required in SBL. It is actually the application of that knowledge, right? So you need to make sure that your focus is in the right direction. Use professional language. This is something very interesting, that they try to sound professional. They use professional language, professional words in their answers, like using the words like human resource, market share, these kind of things which are normally used in an organization. And lastly, and interestingly, both of them mentioned that they think like a CFO. This is one of my strategies to upgrade your thought process, that when you are giving SBL paper, you must think and feel like you are the CFO of that organization. Would a CFO talk about small accounting matters, or would a CFO look at the big picture in the boardroom? So the moment you start feeling and thinking like a CFO, automatically your mind will become more aligned to SBL, because SBL is strategic business leader. The word is business, right? So these are some of the very interesting takeaways from which I gathered from them. what they did during the paper. And let me remind you, they scored 92 marks by applying all these things, right? And moving on to the preparation stage. So I also asked them that how did they prepare for SBL? So their study plan is basically, both of them said that, you know, they started serious studies in the last 4 or 5 weeks before the exam. So it was not like they were studying for 3 months or 4 months. They just, you know, became serious students in the last 4 or 5 weeks. So it is pretty much doable. So during last 4 weeks, focus on revising important topics only and not the entire syllabus. Very interesting, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, that SBL is not about knowledge, it is about application of knowledge. So even if you do my top 25 topics, my top 25 topics video lecture is available. My top 25 topics summarized handouts are available. So during the last 4 weeks, stay away from everything else. Just focus on revising the top 25 topics. Then they give at least 4 hours each day during the last 4 weeks. So this was their discipline. No matter what, you know, I think both of them, or maybe at least one of them is a working student, but no matter what, 4 hours a day. So because he was a working student, he said, I cannot sit straight for 4 hours. So I used to sit 2 hours in the morning and then 2 hours in the evening after office hours. So whatever works for you. But the main thing is you have to give at least 4 hours to SBL during the last 4 weeks. This is absolutely critical, right? And then they focus 20% on theory and 80% on practice. Again, because it's an application paper, you can only learn application of knowledge through practice, right? So both of them, they spent little time on theoretical topics. They just focus on top 25, and the bulk of the time they did practice. They solved all the past papers. Do 8 to 10 case studies, including at least 5 time-based mock on CBE platform. Both these students did 10 case studies, but actual past paper case studies. No case studies from kits, no case studies from other institutes or tutors or whatever. They just, stuck to the actual past paper of SBL. So they did 8 to 10, out of which 5 case studies they did under pure time-based, so that, you know, they can measure their timing, because you require stamina. And if you are, lagging behind on time, the only way you can improve your time management and improve your speed is through time-based practice. So doing at least 5 time-based mocks is very, very important. And don't read examiner answer. It is for educational purpose only. It's not practical under exam conditions. All right. So they just took a look at 1 or 2 examiners' answers just to understand the language, the layout, but that's it. So I asked them then, how did they check their answers, which material they were using. So they mentioned that they looked at the suggested answers, which I have shared on my Google Drive. So I'm really honored. So you can also look at my suggested answers, which are more, practical under exam conditions. It is more from a student's point of view rather than an educational point of view, right? And none of them never used any book or revision kit. So these are the main takeaway. I divided them between the exam day, the 4 hours during the paper, and the 4 to 5 weeks prior to the exam, which I call is the preparation stage. Right, guys? So I really hope that these two interviews, along with my summary of the key takeaways, you will find it really helpful. And I would really, honestly request everybody to go through this techniques, learn from these prize winners, global place winners, and focus on these things from the start, so that you are also able to score amazing marks in SBL. It is pretty much doable. It's just hard work for 4 to 5 weeks. So again, this is Hassan DOSSANI with you. I teach online at Virtual Institute of Higher Education, Dubai. And this is my WhatsApp number. If you have any questions, confusions, or you want to get in touch with me or take some guidance, I would be most happy to respond. Right, with this, I am signing off. I wish all of you the very best. And who knows, the next prize winner, the global, national or global prize winners might be someone from you. All right, good luck, take care, and bye-bye.